So the trade that everyone is claiming could be the worst of all time somehow continues to get worse. For those who may be living underneath a rock, about a week and a half ago, the Dallas Mavericks decided to trade their 25-year-old superstar that just led them to the NBA Finals to the Los Angeles Lakers, and in return, you would assume they receive a massive haul of draft picks, but no. They received a 31-year-old Anthony Davis, a rising two-way guard in Max Christie, and just one draft pick. Just one. Crazy. Which didn't let many people to question why exactly would they do this trade, especially because the Lakers had more than just one draft pick to give out, and they certainly could have also added someone like Dalton Connect or Austin Reeves in this transaction as well. But then there was also a subsection of people that knew that this was a bad trade, and we were just sitting here counting down the days to figure out how long was it going to take for the Mavericks and that front office to regret the trade that they decided to commit to. And it seems as if like that day is sooner than later. As a matter of fact, it feels as if like the regret is rather immediate, because what happened over the past 3 to 4 days has not only made an already really bad trade even worse, but potentially could have immediate ramifications that will impact what this team is going to look like this year, and potentially what a lot of people are speculating what's going to happen in the following years as well. What exactly do I mean by this? Well, A, Anthony Davis has already been ruled out for an indefinite period of time. So over the weekend, Anthony Davis was cleared to make his Dallas Maverick debut against the Houston Rockets on Saturday, which as a Laker fan was a bit surprising. And the reason why I said it is because I've been following Anthony Davis all season long, in particular leading up to this trade, and it was widely known that AD not only was not going to play any more games leading into All-Star break, but it was also questioning if he was even going to be available for All-Star weekend as well, because he was dealing with an abdominal strain. Now, you could certainly argue that he was going to be cleared and healthy and ready to go, but there was certainly no need to rush him out on the floor due to the severity of his injury, and on top of that, he was dealing with a foot injury all season long. Matter of fact, this foot injury was lingering from last season as well, and it was impacting him during the Olympic run as well. So rushing AD out to the floor quite literally made no sense at all. But here we are on Saturday afternoon, Houston Rockets, Dallas Mavericks, and to be fair to Anthony Davis, he was out there dominating out of his mind. As a Laker fan, it really did bring tears to my eyes to see someone like AD go out there perform at a really, really high level. And the reason why he was able to do this is because, to be fair, Dallas is a really great team. They have all the proper pieces to put around AD to maximize who he is at the power forward position, especially defensively, but he was also just really great offensively as well. By the end of the first half, AD was dominating, recorded 24 points, 5 assists, 13 rebounds, 3 blocks, and shooting splits across the board that were impeccable. But again, defensively is where the impact was really felt. By the end of the first half, bro, Houston was shooting like 33% from the field and 33% from behind the arc. It was crazy. To see Davis play next to a 5 like Daniel Gafford, which is something he's been asking for years now, a bunch of other athletes and defensive-oriented players, you really get a feel for the type of impact that Davis could give you on a game-to-game basis. But unfortunately, it was short-lived. In the third quarter, AD started to miss his shots, just wasn't as impactful. And then in the fourth quarter, he went down with a non-contact injury, which, again, really, really tough to watch for AD. Now, originally, it was reported that it wasn't that severe of an injury. However, as time has progressed, we now realize it is in a left abductor strain that is going to keep him sidelined for multiple weeks and potentially more than an entire month of basketball, which is crazy for multiple reasons. But the most obvious one is if the Dallas Mavericks decided to trade Luka Doncic because he doesn't take the game serious, he's this fat slob who doesn't take his conditioning serious, and because he doesn't take his conditioning serious, that thus will leave him vulnerable to miss games because he's not going to be healthy enough to play these games. So what you decide to do is trade him for a player who also deals with health concerns as well in Anthony Davis. Yeah, that really makes a lot of sense. That's dumb. And to make it even worse, you decide to trade him, and then when you get him back, it feels like you rush AD on the floor, and just when you rush AD on the floor, you have him playing 20 minutes in the first half? You don't have him on a minutes restriction? What sense does that make? We're looking at the All-Star, but you don't even have to rush him out. What sense does that make? None at all. Zero, zilch, nada. That doesn't make any sense. So now the player that you traded for in the attempt of avoiding the impact of missed games is now going to miss games. But now it gets even worse because for those who may not be aware, Derek Lively has also been missing games because he's been dealing with an injury. Matter of fact, he's been out for practically a month, and it's reported that he won't be back until the beginning of April and potentially could be sidelined for the remainder of the regular season. So you were already missing a player. But then it continues to get worse. PJ Washington is also down with an injury. To be fair, it's not clear on how severe this is. It's just seems like an ankle sprain, so he may just miss another game or two, but he's out. Also, let's not forget that Dwight Powell, he's been out since the middle of January as well. And then just when you think it couldn't get worse, it does, because as I record this video, just last night, Daniel Gafford bumped his knee and now he's out. So that means Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, and Dwight Powell all are out. All your front court players are unavailable. And again, you allegedly made this trade to avoid the impact of missed games, but here we are, and the player that you traded for, not only is he out, but all your other bigs are out as well. Wowzers. Now, why exactly is it so impactful? Well, of course, having Anthony Davis not available as well as everybody else is going to be very damning, but if this is an organization that believes they can maximize the window that they're in right now by having AD, it's going to be very difficult to do with him being out, as well as this team fighting for a play-in position, which is the second reason. I have no idea why people thought they were having this big brain moment over the weekend about, oh, this trade, it really wasn't that bad. It really was even. You had a bunch of people believing that the Dallas Mavericks all of a sudden were the second best team in the Western Conference, which in some capacity I could see that maybe being true, but the reality is that it's really hard for anybody to even buy into that when the Dallas Mavericks are all the way in the 8th, 9th, 10th seed, potentially 11th now, due to the amount of games that are going to be missed from Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, and now Anthony Davis. And just so I have the facts straight in front of me, as I record this video, the Dallas Mavericks have a record of 28-26. They are the 8th seed in the Western Conference, 16 games behind the Oklahoma City Thunder. But the Sacramento Kings are only a half a game behind the Mavericks, and so are the Golden State Warriors, two teams that have made improvements during the deadline. So they can easily overcome the Mavericks in the standings if you have all of these players who are not available. And this is very damning because, again, if the whole reason why you believed I needed to make this trade so I can best maximize this window that I believe I'm currently in, well, one of the years seems as if like it's going to be lost now because you might not be able to maximize this window in and of itself due to the injuries that you are now sustaining. So not only is AD now injured, which is really, really tragic, and again, I think that it's a lot of malpractices going on out in Dallas, but now due to AD's being injured as well as a bunch of other front court players, you now have jeopardized your positioning in the standings, and you're already so low in the playoff route that you potentially are going to miss not only the playoffs, but also the play-in. But in my opinion, the biggest concern that came out over the weekend is what the Mavericks owner decided to come out and say in terms of all of the rumors that have been circulating around the organization deciding to go down this path and make the trade, moving off of their 25-year-old superstar. Patrick Dumont sat down with a newscast out in Dallas and had by far, and I do mean by far, the dumbest quote I think I might have ever heard in my life from an owner, someone who's a decision maker, who you can clearly tell he doesn't know what he is doing.
Team Governor Patrick Dumont spoke with the Dallas Morning News and seemed to take a shot at the former superstar.
Jordan, Bird, Magic, Kobe, Shaq, they worked really hard every day with a singular focus to win. And if you don't have that, then it doesn't work.
Oh my goodness. Man, when I heard that quote, I lost my mind because now it's confirmed that y'all don't know what you're talking about. First and foremost, and I don't think I have to say this to a lot of the people who are watching this, but to the potential millionaires who are watching this, the billionaires who want to own teams and make decisions that are going to ruin entire cities. Let it be known that this idea of like having this ultra hard worker who's obsessive with the sport and keeping his body in check, that is a very, very, very small amount of all-time greats who take it that serious. Be very mindful of what I just said. A very, very, very small amount of all-time greats. Not players, even amongst all-time greats. It is quite literally like Kobe, LeBron. That's really about it. Everyone else throughout NBA history, they have either body issues or they have problems keep staying healthy. They have problems with this level of determination and concept of just being dedicated. And they all do things that are very questionable to the degree of dedication they may have to the sport in and of itself, but they tend to overcome whatever they may put their body through just solely based off the fact that they're that good at the game. Now, we can all disagree and go back and forth on how dedicated Michael Jordan may have been, even though there's been several reports of him not only showing up to Atlantic City, gambling in the middle of a playoff series. God forbid anybody does that now. All of the clips and pictures of him smoking cigars and drinking alcohol, staying up late at night, gambling all throughout the season. But hey, but for you to say Shaq's name, Shaq is so notoriously known for not trying hard that not only is it well documented, but he himself will tell you that he's not well disciplined, that he didn't give his 100% hardest, that he wasn't trying all the time. He will tell you himself. And the irony of it all is that not only will he tell you himself, he actually came to the defense of Luka over the weekend about this idea about how he's not disciplined, how he's fat, because Shaq knows himself that he was fat and it still led to dominance.
So let me address one conspiracy theory that I was a part of. He's out of shape. He does this. He does that. Okay, now let's look at the facts. Last 5 years, has he been all NBA? Mm-hmm. What? Okay, which team?
First.
Okay, cool. Last 5 years, he's averaged what?
Either like top 3 points per game in the NBA.
Okay, yeah, 28. Last 5 years, has he taken them to the finals?
He went to the finals and 2 conference finals.
Okay, so my question is, and the answer is, what does it matter? In shape, you do all that. Out of shape, you do all that. What difference does it make, right? I used to come in out of shape on purpose because one, who the f am I getting ready for? I'm only getting ready for me and maybe one guy, which is a Tim Duncan, but I don't really play him. So, here and here, I'm out. I talk about it all the time. I'm averaging 28, period. I'm going to be the top center at my position. So all this stuff, he was out of shape. That's just to throw dirt on his name and his legacy. But you're not really making sense because, to me, out of shape is I can't play, I can't breathe, I can't perform. This man's been first team All-NBA. I was first team All-NBA. This man's a future Hall of Famer. I'm a Hall of Famer.
So the simple fact that you brought up Shaq in this equation about how you don't think that you have to be as dedicated as Shaquille O'Neal to win a championship lets all of us know that you're not serious at this. And it's why many of us don't believe you when you say these foolish things. That's why it's really, really hard for us to believe. And the reason why that he was doing an interview is because there has been a lot of rumors and conversations circling around the Dallas Mavericks organization on why they would actually make this trade. And it all ends in the direction of the organization with their new owners attempting to move the team to Las Vegas because the new owners have a bunch of money in casinos and gambling and all that stuff that's going on in Vegas. And with the idea of the league expanding and bringing a team out in Vegas, that they could potentially relocate the Mavericks out to where they have a lot of their money being invested into. Now, personally, I believe that's a bit elaborate, not to say that it can't be true, because it certainly can be, and it has happened throughout NBA history. However, what I do believe is much more realistic is that this is an organization that has a new owner group in the Adelman family that made a lot of money with casinos and resorts like they did in Vegas, and right now in Texas, they're trying to convert them over to allowing sports gambling in that state. And by doing so, the new ownership group bought majority of stake in the Dallas Mavericks from Mark Cuban. And after doing that, they've been throwing a lot, and I do mean a lot, I think it's like tens of millions of dollars into lobbyists to try to change laws to allow casinos and gambling in Texas. And by doing so, they would then be able to build a new arena that they have been very open about doing so. And in this new arena, it would have casinos and a resort. Now, a lot of people have sat there and told people, hey, they've already failed at this. They're not going to be able to bring it back up into another 2 more years, which is fair, and that's 100% true. However, have you not noticed that all of the decisions that they've been making with these players all reside in a 2 to 3 year window? Have you not noticed that? If you go look at the financial structure of all the players on the roster, almost all of them come off of the books in 2027, which is 2 years from now, when they would just so happen to circle back around trying to legalize gambling in Texas. Anthony Davis, his last guaranteed year in his contract is 2027. Klay Thompson, last guaranteed year, 2027. Najee Marshall, Max Christie, Derek Lively, all 2027. Caleb Martin's last guaranteed year under his contract is 2027. Now, that may be a bit of a conspiracy theory. However, I think that it's not a coincidence that everyone they decided to trade for, bro, they all come off the books in 2027. And I also think that it's not a coincidence that when speaking about Luka, it's not just the fact that they believe he's he's not going to be able to lead him to a championship, despite the fact that he led him to a finals appearance last year. But it's also the fact that if he stayed on that team, he would be eligible for a supermax contract, and that contract would exceed beyond 2027. And if you try to make that level of financial commitment, not only are you setting yourself up to more than likely be a second tax apron team where you're spending upwards to $200 million on these rosters, but more importantly, you wouldn't have the financial leverage to continue to throw endless amount of money at these politicians to lobby them to make sure you can get your casino bill passed. And even if you want to bypass the conspiracy theories, it's still crazy that within a week after you making the trade, the player that you receive in the trade, your grand prize, the idea of you don't want Luka on your roster because you want to avoid missed games because he doesn't take conditioning serious, but you trade him for a player who is known to miss games. He immediately gets injured in the first game where for whatever reason you didn't have him on a minutes restriction. Then everybody else gets injured in your front court as well. You're battling for a playoff spot in a tough Western Conference, and the teams below you all made trades during the deadline that made them better, so it's going to be easier for them to overcome you sooner than later. Bro, this is a disaster. This is an utter disaster. But hey, that's the update there. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I really want to know what you think about the whole conspiracy theory about how they are potentially purposely ruining this organization so they don't have to make any steep financial commitments just in case they need to throw even more money in terms of lobbying to try to pass the bill so they can build their casino up. Or what do you just think in general about the idea of trading Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis and where this organization has quickly found themselves in? Because quite literally in one day, their entire plan is just gone to shit, at least for this season. I mean, that's a bit crazy. But yo, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment section below. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.